For the Republic by Wanderer 101, Chapter 10. For the Republic, it is well that war is so terrible, lest we might grow too fond of it. General Robert E. Lee, United Republic Ground Forces, 1860. Vigilo Confindo, XCOM motto. Empty space near Kaishan, XCS Avenger. Since it was created, XCOM has been preparing for the inevitable moment when it was finally revealed to humanity that it was not alone in the universe. For much of the 21st century, it's ignored and considered by some to be a waste of money. That was until the Prothean ruins were found on Mars. New life was breathed into the organization, which quickly found itself being given the cutting edge of human technological development and a pool of the most skilled soldiers, scientists, and engineers in the world to recruit from. Despite the Vietnam War being considered by many a great victory for humankind, it was considered a source of shame for XCOM. The one thing they were created to do was over before they could participate. How many died simply because they were not there? In their first real test against the galaxy's threats, XCOM had failed. That would not happen again. XCOM's new commander, Jack Harper, a former member of the Republic Black Operations Group, restructured the organization to deal with any threat the galaxy threatened. Instead, on large-scale battles more suited for a traditional military, XCOM would covertly insert small teams of soldiers to deal with threats. This better suited the Special Forces origins of XCOM soldiers. More focus would be put on XCOM naval forces to help counter the numerical advantage the Council held over them. XCOM's research and development labs will analyze the Council technology and will learn from it, improve upon it, and eventually nullify it. Dr. Gavin Archer has always designed a special round to nullify biotech or kinetic barriers. XCOM's engineering division under Dr. Eva Core have already pushed the limits of human technological development by building improved energy weapons and power armor models. The intelligence division under Henry Lawson has made significant strides in completely destroying alien abilities to spying humanity. His best agents had recently captured one of the Shadow Broker's top infiltrators and have begun interrogating him. Although the Wanderer asks that the other human nations to stay out of the Republic's war with the Batarian hegemony, he didn't include XCOM, and they would have disobeyed the order even if he did. They missed the first war between humans and aliens, and they certainly weren't going to miss another. Besides, it gave Commander Harper a chance to refine his tactics and finally prove to the naysayers in the most spectacular way that XCOM was not a waste of money. Karshan, Hedgeman Palace. Welcome to Karshan. For our first real combat mission, the commander has decided to go for broke. You'll be inserted directly into Karshan's capital city at the Hegemon's Palace. Once there, you will attempt to capture or kill the Batarian Hegemon. Your secondary objective is to gather any and all incriminating information or information that will help the war effort. Your third objective is unimportant to the mission as a whole. If you cannot accomplish it without jeopardizing the mission, then you're given the green light to abandon it. Try to keep it quiet. We don't want our friend slipping away. Good luck out there, team. Central out. No one cared as the Star Ranger landed at the Hegemon's Palace that evening. This was the Batarian homeworld, one of the most heavily defended planets in the galaxy. An entire fleet was in orbit at all times, with another a short relay jump away. Dozens of orbital defense stations were the second line of defense, and hundreds of ground-based mass drivers made up the third. After that, they would have to get by millions of the hegemony's elite troops. Military analysis believed it would take the combined fleets of the Turians, Asari, and Silurians to pierce the planet's defenses. Even though they were at war with the United Republic, most of the fighting was in the Ascalian Verge, with only the tiniest of skirmishes in hegemony space, or at least that was what the news said. The hegemony also had some of the strictest immigration and tourist policies in the galaxy, beat only by the Turians, who made it difficult for any other species to legally live on Palaven. They didn't need any alien pollution superior proletarian culture with their own or given the lower castes ideas. This reputation was just seen as another weakness for XCOM to exploit. All of this protection made the hegemony's homeworld free from the threat of alien invasion, whether through armies or ideals. This had the unfortunate effect of making Karshan's defenders lazy and inexperienced. Getting an insignificant assignment on the homeworld was seen as a cushy job by all in the hegemony's military, a chance to kick back and relax when a strange aircraft painted in non-hegemony colors was seen flying through the air towards the hegemony's palace. Few paid it any mind. Most assumed it was some new experimental military craft that was about to be shown off to the hegemon himself. After all, who would not only try to infiltrate the Karshan uh, space, but have the audacity to fly through the air with no attempt at disguising their ship? The Star Ranger landed on a landing pad in the rear of the palace. No one was on the platform, though that would change quickly. The four-man team quickly filed out, taking cover, and just in time as two palace guards walked through the door to the palace interior. They were walking towards the Star Ranger, no doubt, to ask the pilot what his business here was. Their demeanor wasn't what you'd expect for the lead protectors of the hegemon. Their weapons were undrawn, and they were both talking and laughing, completely unaware of the four highly trained enemy commandos less than 10 feet from them. The two Batarians' last conscious thought were them registering their necks had been snapped without getting a chance to see the killers, let alone knowing they were even there. The bodies were quickly disposed of and the uniforms taken. The two disguised soldiers walked through the halls with purpose. After all, who would stop someone that looked like they were doing something important? Finding the hegemon was a simple matter thanks to the information they stole from the Shadow Broker and STG. The hegemon adhered to a fairly strict schedule. He always ate, worked, and slept at certain times, meaning he could easily be intercepted by those that knew his schedule. He was certainly in his quarters entertaining himself with a few of his slaves before bed. They were to capture him and hack his terminal for any information they could get their hands on. Their third objective was freeing his slaves, though if on the off chance he wasn't here but elsewhere, then they were to abandon his objective altogether. Judging from the sounds coming from inside, this was unnecessary. The door to the hegemon's quarters had two guards standing next to it. Upon seeing the disguised XCOM soldiers approach, the guards instantly relaxed. One of them walked up and said, "Finally, I never thought a shift would end. After hearing the hegemon with his slaves for the past hour, I can't wait to get back home to mine." Beating down the urge to shoot the Batarian in the back, the disguised soldiers took up position on either side of the door. The cloaked soldiers stood at the Bata's attention, ready to turn back anyone that approached, or if things went south, be the first line of defense. Thankfully, nothing happened. The only thing of note to occur was passing guards making comments on the overachieving new guards who didn't move or make a sound while guarding the hegemon's door. The Batarian hegemon Malek was using his newest slave, a Quarian female he bought a couple of months ago. Getting to see just what Quarians look like under their suits was worth the amount of credits he spent getting medicine to keep her from dying. Still, the novelty was wearing off quickly. She still sobbed loudly while he did the act, which ruined the experience for him. His other slaves had long since learned to keep quiet, though it looked like he needed to remind her again. "Be quiet!" he said, giving her a strong slap across her face. The Korean clutched her face and gave him a look of pained outrage. She looked like she was about to say something until she quickly corrected herself. Good, she was learning. Not to make sure she took it to heart. As he prepared to slap her again, he felt something roughly grab his hand. Looking to his left, he could see someone covered head to toe in black armor shake their head disapprovingly. The person was most likely a human male, judging from the body shape, since the Sari were a lot thinner. How did humans get on Karshan, let alone his private quarters? Now a hegemon, said the human, wagging his fingers at him. Hitting defenseless women is a serious offense. Adding the slavery and being an asshole on top of that only makes it worse. Why, that puts you in a serious danger of. Hijmin Malik was felt his collar roughly grabbed by someone else. Malik then found himself face to face with a helmetless human female whose face was contorted into the very definition of rage. Getting your ass kicked. The female finished, a cruel grin appearing on her face. The next few minutes of consciousness Malik experienced were nothing but pain. Hey, are you okay? The male asked, kneeling next to the Korean. The Korean shrank back while making a futile effort to cover herself. Thank you, she mumbled. Hey, don't mention it. Getting to beat the shit out of this guy is both a public service and a pleasure. Speaking of which, hey Jack, how you doing? Everything is going fan-fucking-tastic. We should be doing this more often, Jack said as she punched the hegemon in the face with each word. You want a turn, Jacob? Maybe later. Though remember, we're supposed to bring him back alive, Jacob warned. Just how alive are we talking about? Jack asked, throwing down the hegemon, whose face was almost unrecognizable. Enough to stand trial. You heard that, Malin? We get to have more fun later, she taunted, giving him a kick in the groin. Jacob rolled his eyes and turned back to the Korean. Does he have any other slaves here? He asked. She nodded and pointed to a nearby door. In that room there, he keeps us locked in cages when we're not being used. Jacob nodded quickly, heading over to the room and giving the hegemon a kick of his own when he passed him. When Jacob opened the door, he gagged from the stench that assaulted his nostrils the moment he opened the door. The room itself did look very much like a medieval dungeon with its stone walls and floors. The only thing modern was the single light hanging from the ceiling, which did a poor job illuminating the room. From inside were 8 iron cages, like what you'd see at a zoo. In 7 of those cages were women from various races, 3 Asari, 2 Batarian, 1 Turian, and 1 Drell. They all had nothing to wear, let alone sleep on. In each cage was a bucket which he quickly guessed the use of. Explained the smell. What the fuck? Jack said upon looking inside herself. She then turned back towards the hegemon, who had the good sense to look scared shitless. Jack, Jacob said quietly, grabbing her attention. Call in the Star Ranger. Let's get the hell out of here. Until it gets here, however, do your absolute worst. Yes, sir, Jack said as she stomped over to the hegemon. Jacob tried to ignore the screams as he unlocked the cages. The screaming of the hegemon was ignored by the palace staff. It was a lesson they learned the last time that happened during the reign of a previous hegemon. When his screaming was heard throughout the palace, the guards rushed in, weapons at the ready. Turns out he wasn't in danger like they initially assumed, and that he was just experimenting. Since then, any noise coming out of a hegemon's quarters during their private time was ignored. It looks like this hegemon was into the kinky stuff as well. The only point when the guards realized this wasn't that kind of situation is when a strange aircraft hovered near the balcony of the hegemon's quarters. There was absolutely no rational explanation for that happening. By the time anti-aircraft guns could get a lock on it, the aircraft flew away. It must have had some kind of advanced cloaking or jamming systems, because once it went above cloud level, they lost it, and the defense fleet found no sign of it. The only ones with tech that good was the humans, but the front line was light years from here. If they could still perform operations this far into hegemony space, a lot of heads rolled when it was discovered the hegemon was gone. The captain of the palace guard was stripped of his rank along with him, and his being demoted down the lower castes. Hegemon leadership is currently in the middle of deciding who would become the new hegemon. There's a line of succession in palace in case something like this happened, but recently a faction within the hegemon had gained significant traction. They advanced to making peace with the humans and restricting slavery raids to the Termians to avoid antagonizing the council. This kidnapping of the hegemon and the Republic's success on the battlefield is giving them more and more support. Hopefully this could be resolved before the humans find out and capitalize on it. Operation Shadowhawk success. Batarian hegemon captured, 7 non-human slave freed. Participation soldiers: Lieutenant Jacob Corsair Taylor, 0 kills. Corporal Jacqueline Jack not recommended for promotion, 0 kills, 1 severely beaten battalion. Sergeant Miranda Lawson, 1 kill. Sergeant Kai Leng, 1 kill. Jack Harper allowed himself a rare smile as he read the after-action report for XCOM's first mission. This couldn't have gone any better. While the hegemony will no doubt be on their guards from now on, this had gone much for XCOM and humanity as a whole. The hegemony of the Batarian hegemon was kidnapped from his very home by humans. No matter how much they try to water it down with propaganda, the fact that Karshan isn't safe from humanity has dealt a serious blow to the hegemony. The shocks were felt throughout the council space as well. Even on its best day, the STG wouldn't be able to attempt something so unreasonably insane, which was admittedly part of the reason why it worked. The slaves they freed have been released back into council space, barring half of them who wanted to stay. The ones that left wasted no time in telling of the horrors they experienced at the hands of the hegemon, with the Asari having spent up to a century in captivity being passed down to hegemon. This, for lack of a better term, lit a fire upon the council's ass, who was being bombarded with the demands, mostly from the Turians, to join the Republic in its war with the hegemony. For now, they've kept silent, but the pressure was mounting up. His source in the Republic military say that the war might be over by the time they joined it. The Wanderer has called for a massive assault on Hegemon's base, saying that it's time we take off the kid gloves. The day of the Batarian hegemony were numbered. The slaves that didn't leave outright pleaded with him to join XCOM. They were the Quarian Turian, one of the Batarians, and one of the Asari. While at first he was a bit loath to let aliens join XCOM, he could see that at least some of them had some value to them. Asari was a form of commando and biotics instructor, though before being enslaved attempted to leave that life behind and pursue a career in science. Miss Rana Thanopets would be invaluable when Dr. Archer's research into creating human biotics finally bared fruit. The Quarian, like many of her species, was a mechanical prodigy. She and Dr. Core had an hour-long discussion on the possible melding of human and Mass Effect technology, which only ended when Dr. Core remembered the Quarian wasn't supposed to be on the engineering level in the first place. He couldn't tell between the two of them who was unhappier when the guards escorted the Quarian back to the clean room she was staying in. Miss Gabby Daniels will no doubt be surprised to find herself officially added to XCOM's engineering division come tomorrow. The Turian was the leader of a small group of mercenaries that was decimated by a slaver group on their way to Omega. She and the few other survivors were enslaved. Since Turian females were rare captures, she was snatched up by Malek as the new addition to his collection. She was a biotic also and a decent fighter. Miss Nerian Kandros would be added to XCOM's pool of soldiers. The Batarian was the hardest place. She was a slave all her life, leaving her with no special skills and no combat experience. It would take too long to train her to the level of the rest of XCOM soldiers who were experienced special forces from all the nations. She knew that on some level, and has been keeping herself busy, helping out anywhere she could. She was a pretty decent cook as well, making some traditional Batarian dishes in the Avengers mess hall. She had no official name, just being referred to as slave, wench, and other less polite names. One of her kinder masters gave her something approaching a name. The closest English translation would be one who tends the crops. XCOM personally naturally shortened that to Gardener. When he informed the leaders of his accepting the freed slaves into XCOM, the responses were mixed, to say the least. None of them were against it, but both Caesar and Bismarck warned him against possibly attempting to take what they learned back to council space. He informed them that he made precautions like having the director of XCOM intelligence, Henry Lawson, keep near constant watch on them. Once that was done, he returned to Mission Control. He had more operations to plan out. There was a war going on after all. Torfan Republic Fob. This is going much better than expected, Shepard thought as he waited in the briefing room. Since landing here a couple days ago, the battle for Torfan proceeded quite smoothly. Nearly all pirate, slaver, and military installations were wiped out in the first 6 hours of combat. Unfortunately, the surviving enemy forces retreated within Torfan's single city and dug in. In a normal circumstance, they'd blast the city to pieces with bombers or artillery, but they were still inhabited by large numbers of civilians. The brass was loath to do anything that might kill loads of civilians, which wasn't at all helped by the tendency of the Batarians to set up in resident areas or keep refugees near their bases. This left them having to keep the city. This have them having to take the city block by block. In the past, this would be a long, hard battle, but the sheer difference between Republic and Batarian forces made it much easier than it had any right to be. Though that was to be expected when you pitted a professional military with energy weapons, power armor, and orbital/air superiority against a force of pirates and slavers who were more suited for quick raids than extended battle. The only ones who showed any real competency were the mercs and the few hegemony troops sent here in preparation for the Republic's assault. The battle looked to be coming to an end, with the only major enemy force being in what looked to be the governor's mansion. It was this overly extravagant building built on a hill overlooking the city, so the governor could look down on all he ruled. It was since been heavily fortified, caused it to resemble a military compound due to it being out of the way of any civilians buildings. They had originally bombed the place to oblivion to not waste any forces attempting to take it. Unfortunately, the commander of the hegemony forces no doubt foresaw this. He had his troops round up any slaves, civilians, and Republic prisoners. They then brought them within their compound and broadcast a warning saying that if they were attacked, then the hostages would be executed. The brass was unwilling to make a massacre on their hands, especially with the Citadel news watching them. That was something Shepard disapproved of, though he didn't voice his opinions. The brass was using this as a chance to show off in front of the cameras. He could see the logic of it, showing the galaxy that they could do to help deter any more attacks. He still didn't like it though. The briefing soon got underway. All Rangers present on Torfan were in this mission. They were to covertly infiltrate the mansion through the sewers. They would no doubt be guarded So AIs would jam the communications of those stationed down there, allowing them to slip in unnoticed. Shepard grimaced. He didn't like stealth ops that much, but anything for this battle he finally got over. He was getting paired with another ranger, Donnelly, for this. That was one silver lining to this. He trained with Ken back at the academy, and every minute he spent with that Scott bastard was one worth remembering. Scott was descended from the barbarians that originally lived in the area where Liberty City now sits. They, along with other defeated tribes, were absorbed into the Republic. He was a damn fine soldier and always had a funny comment, no matter the situation, which was plus in Shepard's book. He went to the armory to collect his weapons. He went with something different from his usual arsenal due to this being a stealth mission. A suppressor equipped MP5 along with an AR-7 laser pistol. While not a Republic weapon, the guns the Germans made was decent in his eyes. The laser was in case things went bad, which, given his luck, was no doubt going to happen. Civilopedia. XCS Avenger, the prototype to the Romans' Execular class super dreadnought. The Avenger is the mobile headquarters for XCOM. While not meant for combat, the ship is heavily armed and equipped with humanity's best weapons, fighters, and soldiers. Length 10 kilometers. Weapons 200 turbo laser batteries of various sizes, 100 point defense turrets, 40 concussion missile launchers, and 1 experimental ion cannon. Complement 20 F-170s, 20 TIE fighters, 20 M91s, 20 MiG-75A wings, 20 10 B-710-71s, 20 TIE bombers, and 40 Republicans and Russian Y-wings, 10 Star Rangers, and 20 LAATs. Crew 1,500 assorted personnel, crew member, engineer, scientists, etc. 10 digital AIs, 80 platformal equipment AIs, humanoid bodies, disposable droid bodies, armored assault walkers, 46 soldier squads, 240 troops. Cultural Civilopedia, name World War Z, type literature, year 2004, nation of origin United Republic of States, plot a naval by the name of Max Brooks, detailing what would happen if a zombie outbreak happened in real life, presented in an oral history format. The book was a bestseller and was later adapted into a film. And the infection starts by Carthaginian archipelago catching the virus in spore form and bringing it back to their homeland. The virus quickly spreads from Carthage to the entire world due to Carthaginian status as a trade hub. All nations fared terribly. In the war, much of Rome remains irradiated due to failure of nuclear power plants. The mainland United Republic is abandoned after the disastrous Battle of Broker. Much of Germany is lost, with them having them flee to the Republic city of Stillwater, which becomes a fortress in a sea of undead. Russia continues fighting the undead for years after the war due to the cold temperatures making it difficult to find and kill every undead. The city-state of Hanoi is wiped out, with its remaining populace living in the Republic, dreaming of one day reclaiming their homeland. A barbarian confederacy rises up in the unclaimed areas of the world. Name Apocalypse Now. Type of film. Year 1998. Nation of origin United Republic of States. Plot. In the 1960s, the Republic Ranger defects to a large tribe of barbarians and attempts to turn them into a powerful empire. The URGF is sent in to take them out, based on a true story. Famous quote, "I love the smell of napalm in the morning." And Apocalypse Now is a true story in this world. Colonel Kilgore is highly respected figure in the URGF, especially with the Air Cavalry, who play Bride of the Valkyrie in his honor. Name: Enemy of the Gates. Type: film. Year: 1973. Nation of origin: United Socialist State of Russia. Plot: taking place in the First World War. The film follows a squad of Russian soldiers who attempt to hold the city of St. Petersburg from the Russians. The film is famous for being the originator of the Roman army ending trope, when films ends with the two surviving members of the squad running towards an entire Roman platoon firing their weapons. A famous quote: "Not one step backwards." And this film is very popular in Rome, strangely enough, despite the number of Romans getting gunned down on screen, probably because the battle is kept largely in the background, with much of the focus being the squad's reactions to fighting in a losing battle. End of chapter 10.